Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. And because this is a meditation group, we're going to meditate for a little bit, if that's okay with everybody. And the theme we're going to be exploring tonight is alignment with values, but through the lens of discernment and self-discernment, right, within and noticing what feels alignment, what does not. And so we can kind of just use this meditation as a warm-up and an opportunity to begin exploring that experience within, not judging thoughts, nothing like that, but just kind of noticing that internal felt sense and starting to awaken that quality of discernment within the mind. So finding any way to sit that feels comfortable for you. If upright is possible, upright, but also relaxed, finding that balance. And then meditation will begin and end with the sound of the bell. If it feels supportive for you, you can start with a few longer, slower, deeper breaths, just to help the body and the mind settle together. Slowing down the nervous system, helping the body to arrive. And then as you're ready, just letting go of any control over the breath and allowing the body to breathe completely naturally. Noticing what it feels like to let go of control. The heart keeps beating. The body keeps breathing. So just setting down the need to fix, manage, control. There's nowhere to go, nothing to do. And there's no one that you have to be right now. So just allowing your mind to settle into that rhythm of the breath. Letting the mind rest in the body the same way the body rests on the cushion. And staying with that rhythm of the breath and softening. So relaxing the muscles of the face, the eyes, muscles of the brain and the thinking mind. Similarly, the jaw, the mouth. Scanning down through the shoulders, the shoulder blades, noticing what's happening there. And then allowing the arms and the hands to relax. And then softening the chest, the stomach, the lower belly, breathing into the emotional body. Just inviting in a sense of ease, softness. And scanning down through the legs, feeling the contact with your seat. Relaxing the upper legs, the lower legs, all the way down through the feet. And just allowing the energy of the body to just settle down. And bringing the awareness to the whole body. So we say awareness can be global, kind of wide awareness on the body, with the attention on the breath, wherever that's predominant for you. And starting to lean into this quality of awareness. Just allowing the thinking mind to just do whatever kind of nonsense it wants to do. And staying grounded in this open, spacious quality of the mind. Noticing what's present in the body without judgment, whether it's emotion, whether it's sensation. And what happens when we become curious about our experience, rather than having to accomplish anything? Just tuning into what's here and resting in that quality of knowing. What feels settled in your experience right now? What feels contracted? Is anything asking to be softened, released? And what happens when the mind stops trying to make anything different? Instead comes into a deep acceptance of what's here, right now, in our direct experience. And maybe bringing to mind just a recent experience when you felt grounded, connected, spacious, authentic, maybe even just fully yourself. Maybe that's connected to the natural world or to creativity or to community, being with someone that you love. And then rather than thinking about the story, remembering what that experience feels like in the body, noticing what comes up in the body. Is there ease, warmth, aliveness, steadiness? Just noticing what comes up rather than conceptually, but what we say somatically in the body. Not trying to fabricate anything. Just noticing. We'll spend these last few minutes just in silence. Just resting in this quality of curiosity. Thank you for your practice. I wanted to start with just a question. Maybe we'll just do a show of hands. When the fan kicked back in the middle of the meditation there, who experienced that as pleasant? Who experienced it as unpleasant? Who had experienced it as completely neutral? It's such a good, perfect example. Just the variety of experience, right? The same thing, but different experiences across the board. So I'm going to share some thoughts, and I'm going to try not to take forever because I really want to leave time for discussion. There's going to be a lot of prompts and reflection just, as I'm going through and talking. So, just taking note as I ask some of those questions. So I was talking to some of you outside. I recently finished the national counseling exam, and I noticed for myself that when I go through some of these larger life events that it's like, okay, I've been working towards it, and then when I'm done, there's like the sense of relief in a way of just like, it's done, I can relax. And then there's also kind of, I notice my mind sees it as an opportunity of like, okay, I'm kind of turning a page into another chapter of my life, and it makes me kind of reassess my values a bit and how I'm spending my time. So this is something that's been on my mind of like, yeah, what's important to me? Am I making time for those things? What are the things I'm making time for that aren't actually that important to me? So yeah, we're going to talk about values, and I want to talk about this topic not from a prescription of how anyone should spend their time, or like optimization or having, the mindful schedule with 20 wellness tasks to do in a day. Most of you know that's not really our style here, but instead, just exploring it through this central quality of the Buddhist path, investigation and curiosity. There's one of the words the Buddha used for describing the Dharma, the teachings, Pali word ehipassiko, which means encouraging investigation or to come and to see. So the main idea is that, the teachings aren't just something to be learned, but they're meant to be experienced. Practice, observed. And this is where, for me, the practice gets really interesting. Where does the rubber kind of hit the road in daily life? So that's what we're going to explore tonight. And yeah, how do we do that? We're going to explore it through this Pali term dhamma-vicaya, which means investigation. And that's the lens that I want to explore this kind of values alignment. And we'll explore, some of the things that nourish us, and then like small ways that we can make shifts to live more in alignment with some of those values. So this word dhamma-vicaya, investigation of phenomena, is often how it's translated. I'm sure that's never quite hits the mark, but best we got. And it's one of what the Buddha taught as the 7 factors of awakening, so qualities of the mind that lead to liberation, to freedom. And it's really less about intellectual, analytical, and more about curiosity towards one's own experience. This is one of the things that I thought was so cool about mindfulness and exploring my own mind, in my early 30s, of like, no one's ever taught me to do the most seemingly simple basic thing. I've learned so much conceptual knowledge. No one's ever taught me how to work with my own mind. And I was reflecting on, just this word investigation and like how to bring it back to make it feel less philosophical. And I was thinking about in therapy, right? In good therapy, a therapist isn't telling you what to do. They're empowering the client to cultivate their own discernment, their own ability to know what's true for them, to know how to navigate things. So when therapy is over, the client can walk away with a better sense of discernment, more curiosity. And so the Buddha points towards this seeing clearly, but it has to happen in our own experience. The classic Buddhist distinction, kusala, akusala, often translated as skillful or unskillful. So knowing and experience, kind of through trial and error, what is skillful and what is unskillful. And that was such a big part of the Buddha's story for those of you that are familiar with it. Does this lead me towards clarity or confusion? Does this lead me towards lightness or attachment? I'm going to talk about baseball now, which seems totally off topic. But it's something I grew up loving, and I still enjoy watching it. And I'm not going to say that baseball itself isn't unskillful, but I will say I have some addictive tendencies. For some of those who know me, I'm a recovering drug addict, so I can get addicted to anything, including a professional sport, apparently, which I'm learning about myself. And so recently I've been exploring my relationship to this thing that I've loved my entire life right now, and anyone who's following the Tigers this season, it's just like this, it's not a steady ride. And so, a couple days ago, I was like, I'm just going to set this down for a week, right? I'm just going to set it down. We're eating dinner last night. Olivia's like, what's on your phone? And I'm like, I'm watching.
We're up by 8.
But I'm still watching. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm kind of addicted to this. I didn't know, right? I'm the dopamine or whatever it is that this thing is giving to me, right? I'm a baseball junkie now, put down the hard stuff. Now it's baseball. And so this emotional roller coaster, right? Is this something I can actually get off of? And it's healthy for me though, because it's really helping me explore what my relationship is to this thing, and what are some of the hours that I might be giving it that I could actually be pouring into other things that are important to me. So, first prompt. Is there something in your own life right now that is similar to that? Is there something where there's a rub or a friction, where there maybe could be more of an open hand, right? Some of the things that come to mind, like work, scrolling, technology, even wellness, being attached to exercise or whatever it could be. Maybe just thinking, reflecting to yourself where that rub might be yourself. So investigation, of course, is not only what's draining me or taking my energy away, but also what is reliably nourishing me, and being aware of that. This was a big part of the Buddhist path. 6 years, trying all sorts of crazy shit, fasting until he was almost dead, practicing with really hardcore meditators and trying to find that balance and trying to really see in his own experience. So we have this word samadhi, which means collectedness of mind or unification, when the mind starts to settle and feel more clear. And that can be kind of a reference point, right? That was such a great teacher for me early on in my practice of there can be space. It doesn't have to be 24/7 the mind, the conceptual mind just spinning. And that quality of mind can be remembered and brought into the day. And then exploring what else in my life can support this quality of settledness, of presence. What leaves me feeling more present, more stable, more connected, more spacious. I was in Nashville last month with the Wild Heart Nashville community, and Olivia and I went out to dinner with one of the teachers, the guiding teachers at Wild Heart Nashville, and we were wrapping up, saying goodbyes, and I was like, oh, what are you doing with your evening? And she's like, I'm just going to go home and paint watercolor. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know you painted, or I didn't know you were an artist. She's like, no, I'm not an artist. I just paint, just for the hell of it. It's just fun, I just really have realized that I enjoy it. And it really stuck with me of being older, I feel like I've lost touch of some of those playful things of doing it just for the hell of it. And so I took that home with me, and over this last weekend had some time, a few hours to myself, downloaded kind of a vintage piano analog on my computer and just played piano for a few hours and made a really simple song, something I don't really, have experience with, but was recognizing that similar quality that I find in meditation of I'm just not watching looking at the baseball game or looking at my phone, just finding that my mind immersed and supported and nourished by that activity. So again, maybe what's something you've been wanting to make time for in your own experience that matters to you but keeps kind of getting pushed aside? One of the things I was reflecting on in this talk is that some of the things that are deeply nourishing don't have the same immediate pull of some of the easier pleasures, right? There's the quick dopamine hit of looking at my phone sometimes. Sometimes I don't particularly want to meditate or go for a run or be in community, but I know from experience that it really, really helps and that it nourishes my mind in a way that these quick fixes don't. So over time, right, carving out the time in the day for those things that are, I guess I would say, are more sustainably nourishing. And that's part of dhamma-vicaya, right? The spirit of investigation. Recognizing what reliably nourishes the heart. And so, I don't want the takeaway from this evening to be like, okay, I'm going to go home and rearrange my whole schedule and, make time for everything that I love. But what are some small ways to move in that directions, right? Like 10 minutes in the morning without my phone on, eating a meal without being distracted, going for a walk without headphones on, right? Just whatever that might be in your own experience. I really like this kind of small change approach because I find it personally to be more sustainable than a massive overhaul, which I usually don't follow through with. And this is where there's this experimentation, right? And trying something, notice, adjust, experimenting. And then noticing, as we were doing the meditation, how does this feel in the heart? How does this feel in the mind? How is this impacting my daily life, for better, for worse? I love the idea also that some of the most mundane things can be meaningful experiences, right? Like washing the dishes or being on an elevator or whatever it is, right? Like if I'm trying to cultivate presence, right? Am I making opportunities for that, or groundedness? Am I allowing the opportunities for me to feel grounded in my life? So thank you for sharing that. It's a beautiful, perfect example of that. And it's not always about having to find more time, but sometimes even just adjusting how I relate to what it is I'm already doing and making time that way. And noticing the cause and effect, I think, can be really helpful too, as kind of you were describing, Sylvie, right? What increases as I'm doing this thing? Is there more tension and stress? It doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but just information, right, for the heart. Or if I'm engaging in it this way, does it cause more spaciousness? Am I more present for what I'm doing? And really, only you know that in your own experience. So, just to wrap things up here, setting things down. I think in practice, sometimes everything can settle down and there can be this moment of simplicity. And in those moments of simplicity, what's important to you in those moments? And what helps you remember that simplicity as you move through your life? And what is it that you can take refuge in? In the early Buddhist teachings, the Buddha is pointing out a path, but the seeing has to happen in our own lives. It's not something that's just meant to be believed. The invitation is to come, to see, to investigate, to practice, and learn from experience. And begin again, starting again, time and time again. And I know for me, my meditation practice feels stale when it's just on the cushion. if there's not moments in my day where I'm like actually investigating, it's like, why am I actually doing this if it's not changing anything in my daily life? So I think it's a really rich area to explore. What would a meaningful, fulfilling, sustainable life look like for you? And where is like the rub and the friction preventing that life from becoming real? I'm going to close with just another Pali word, just for the hell of it. Pachatam veditabo vinyuhi, which is another phrase the Buddha used to describe the Dharma or the teachings. It means to be personally understood by the wise. So again, just bringing it back to the sense of taking the practice into the heart and deeply investigating direct experience. So this is what I have to share. Thank you for listening.